I think a very anticipated part of our program, talking with a number of people about what they were excited about today. We have a distinguished panel of clients, people who do research with end clients, with the Fortune 1000 type companies, the people that you are marketing to. And so we're going to get a chance to get inside their minds. They're going to share some wisdom with you that I think will be helpful. These people receive a lot of marketing, and they have some things that they want to share with you about their experience. And so I'm just going to grab my notes and we'll get started. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to each say your name, your company, and what your role is for your company. We'll start with that.
My name is Mike DeRange. I work for HBO. I'm the Vice President of New Media and International Research. What that basically means is I focus on all the non-traditional ways that HBO gets out there, so Blu-ray, DVD, HBO Go, all the related apps, the EST market, and everything, and all the what the new technology is doing with that kind of stuff, so anything related to that, like binging and piracy and cord cutting, so I focus on that area. I also oversee all the technology development stuff, like the development of all the apps like HBO Go and the .com website, so all the usability and design work for that. And international is something I picked up last year that sort of extends that all across the board and globally. So,
thanks.
Hi everybody, Ivy Ascaro. I am a senior manager in the thought leadership team within the Global Consumer Insights Group at Microsoft. So we actually sit within one of the engineering groups within Microsoft, looking at all the consumer products like Xbox, Skype, MSN, obviously. But our job really is to look for broad consumer trends around technology, media, and advertising. So we evangelize all of those trends internally within our product teams, so that they're creating better experiences for consumers, but also we go to a lot of conferences, events like this, lots of client meetings with clients of Microsoft. So we broadly are looking for innovative approaches. So I'm interested in talking to a lot of you, but we don't do campaign effectiveness. We get a lot of that from all of you as well. So. But yeah, so innovation and really looking at where the consumer is going when it comes to technology.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Flora Kelly. I'm the Director of Insights at ESPN. I'm charged with all our insights work for college football, college basketball, and new media development. So similar similar to Mike. I also work on a lot of sort of where's the industry heading in terms of media. So we look at sort of new media behaviors, binging, what's the effect of sort of OTT on our business. It's a really actually interesting time to be in research right now, especially in the media business.
Thank you. Frank Cardignola. I'm with Mondelez. I'm the Global Analytics Group, which nowadays I guess consider being analogous to the 24-hour diner, where you're kind of always on and someone's always on somewhere. Areas of focus that I've had, I guess recently or for a while, has been around media and I guess social listening. And social especially around as it involves of not only insights, but of predictive nature. So kind of how to sort of crack that code.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Neil Marcus. I'm responsible for market intelligence for our Americas region at MetLife. MetLife is, as many may know, leading provider of life insurance and employee benefits. And basically at MetLife, market intelligence is a combination of the two disciplines of market research and competitive intelligence. And like my colleagues here, I'm responsible for making sure that we're making smart decisions based on insights into the market and the customer, covering anything from product development to advertising development, our new applications in terms of web, mobile, etc. So pretty much a wide variety of different business issues and topics that a lot of us are dealing with today.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I wanted to start off by asking a question that I think will help the audience get a little bit of a better sense of putting themselves in your shoes. Can you help everyone understand really a day in your life with an eye toward the vendors and potential partners that are reaching out to you, what is the context in which their marketing messages are received?
Okay, I guess I'll start because I have the mic. So again, not surprising to many of you, my day is spent in a lot of meetings with our business partners, and then some of you, talking about projects. But I'd say it's hectic, and I don't really get to say my email until the end of the day, and then it's plowing through all of those emails, and there I will see sometimes communications from vendors, suppliers that are looking to engage me. I also will check my voicemail, but interestingly about voicemail, not so much as it used to be. So I'm sure a lot of us are finding that. So there was a day not too long ago when I checked my voicemail and I'd have 10 messages, and among those 2 would be a lot of messages from people who are eager to meet with me, develop relationships with us. Today, not so much, and I think that's a good thing, and that's something we can talk about a little later in terms of what channels to best use when communicating. But quite frankly, voicemail for me is not it. I don't have time and really to listen to long messages or then to respond and write numbers down. So email is definitely the way that we're communicating more. We have instant messaging, as many companies do now. So when I'm even in meetings, I will be responding to things like that. So it's a hectic day, and it's a challenge, I think, for you all to probably penetrate the clutter that is out there in terms of email and other forms of communication. So that's just a quick snapshot of what my day's like.
It's fun. Again, as I was mentioning before, the day has really become the day. It never really sort of begins and ends anymore. So it's kind of always, I think, and one thing I've tried to find important is to figure out as part of that day to look for things that are innovative. But what I've found is, the only way I've really been able to approach that without, and you mentioned about voicemail, I haven't checked voicemail just to more delete them than anything else, because if I really want to contact them, it's never generally the way to do so. And if I don't ever recognize the number, if I see it come up, I just wouldn't pick it up. But to me, I think in terms of that process of finding what's innovative is either through people I know as referrals, generally, or in ways that I try to go out and find information. So it's sort of that intersection where you may be, and then kind of what I'm looking for. Because I think too, it's with mentioning how long the day has become, if a lot of it is spent just in answering every email and or phone call I've ever received, for the most part, that's basically what I do. And that doesn't mean, again, to sort of turn it off to want to find those things out. But again, I try to do that more on my own schedule more than anything else, which doesn't always lead to probably the most effective thing in realizing you're going to miss stuff out there. But again, it's sort of trying to balance finding out things. And I think the other thing too is just how difficult budgets have become. So as much as things you may see and say, well, that's cool, I'd love to do them, I also think, in having worked in both client and supplier side, there's sort of respect, I think, for people's time, not to say, to me, the always dreaded word is what, pilot, which is always, can you do that for free kind of thing. So again, trying to be respectful around all of that, I think is really key too.
So I think in our department, we see our roles as perpetual students of the business. So the research is part of that, but for us to do effective research, we need to understand what's going on in our business, and it's constantly evolving. So that means we're immersed. You have us as clients, but we have our own internal clients. So that's us immersing ourselves in their business, whether it's marketing, programming, or production. So that's what's going on in my day as a researcher, as a corporate researcher. I think one of the challenges we're facing is speed. Right now, with all these technology advancements with social media, our clients are getting access to data as well. So what's our role in that? So in our day-to-day, we're learning about the business. We're trying to answer these questions in a timely manner. Quite frankly, sometimes we're just going to our vendors who we are our partners who we have great relationships with, because we know it can get executed in a great way. I think when you think about that, to break through in terms of clutter is what's different. What are you doing that's different? I think the speaker before talked a lot about positioning. I think that's right. I think if you come to me and tell me I could do this, I'm going to automatically shut you off because there's no way you could do this, and effectively. So speed, understanding our business, that's the day-to-day, and how do you break me out of my zone? What's different about your company?
My day is probably very similar to everybody else's on this panel, but I'd just like to add to the last point, which is if I can remember through story what you do, I can remember what to call you for. So one of the things that, there are a lot of companies that come to us with very, very similar propositions, but if I can remember what they did for a client, how they, solved the problem, I can remember that and tell, our stakeholders that and kind of defend you and why we should go for you for an RFP. So just to kind of add, yes, absolutely differentiator. Everybody has a differentiator, but tell us how you solve the problem and kind of try to innovate. We're open to pilots. So everybody knows, we're always looking for something different, right? I think as everybody has mentioned here, the media world is changing, and so the tried and true approaches are great, and there's always going to be projects that are like that. But don't assume that when you're coming to a new client that they're only going to want the same old stuff. Like, come to us with absolutely your capabilities, but come to us with something interesting that I can talk about. And so if I can talk about you, I'll remember you, and I will send you an RFP. So just to add to that.
Yeah, going last doesn't leave a lot, but my morning actually starts because I focus so much on technology and stuff. I actually do a lot of reading first thing in the morning before anybody gets in. So I'm looking for articles or findings that research companies may have posted that may be something interesting. So that's one sort of unique way. If you've done something really interesting in a field, try and get it out there, and that may get noticed, because inevitably when I see the finding, I look to see where it came from. So that's one way to sort of get on my radar. But also a lot of client researchers have been on the supplier side. I know I'm one of 5 VPs overseeing a research group within HBO, and all of us have various levels of supplier side research. I was on the supplier side for 10 plus years. So I know what it's like to be on that side. So when I talk to suppliers, I let them know that. And so I try and I'll try and be a lot more honest about what I'm looking for, what I'm not, and those kind of things. But one of the things is really just email is certainly the thing that helps most. It lets me manage my, how I control and order things. It's also something I can pass on to a peer of mine if it's not really in my wheelhouse, but in theirs. But the biggest thing that'll catch my eye is if there's something relevant to me. So not just a generic list of this is what we do, but hey, we know HBO is really big on this. A little bit of note about something you may have done that may be relevant or tangential or something that could apply is going to stick out a little bit more than hey, we have a great solution for X. So.
Great. So you're all busy, and I've heard a lot of advocating of email as one way of getting in touch. But generally speaking, with all the responsibilities that you have, what would you suggest as kind of the best ways if somebody has a message to get across to you, and it's a message you want to receive? How would you suggest, what types of activities, what types of channels, and would you suggest that people use to get on your radar? We don't all have to.
Just for me, I'll just pass it on real quick. But again, email is the one I have the most control over. It also gives you the most control over it because you can prepare something. I've had people who, particularly people who I've worked with in the past, but maybe not recently, will follow up, and sort of knowing what I'm looking for, I will get, hey, by the way, we did something interesting, here's some details, thought it might be helpful. If you have any projects, keep us in mind. And that's the kind of thing that will attract my attention a little bit more. And again, it's been mentioned before, I've been doing this 25 plus years, so I have a lot of people I've worked with in the past. But recently, I've worked with people who I've never worked with before, just as much as I've brought back other people, just because of what they brought to the table and how they've come to the table, and I'll talk about that a little more later.
Events for us is a big deal. we go to a lot of industry events, the ARF and ANA. So that's really where we hear the stories, and I think we learn a lot from how clients are using, providers like you. So I would highly encourage, because that is a great storytelling venue, and I can hear really how you solve the problem. It's really hard, webinars are also a great tool. The only problem is sometimes we get, invites to webinars and you have no idea what it's about. So just to be clear, the best invites that we ever get are, an hour is a really long time, I think, for everybody on this panel. So if you're asking somebody to spend an hour with you, let us know what we're going to get out of it. Why is this going to be a good use of my hour? And I think, the ones that I've clicked on, that I've joined, are the ones who really lay that out. So for us, I think, the way that we find out about new providers, the way that we find out new capabilities of old providers is really understanding how they work and how they work on a problem. So for us, events and webinars are a great way.
And emails, definitely effective. Word of mouth, if you have a great relationship with a client and they sort of network, they should be willing to kind of say, hey, we work with this great vendor. I'm always willing to share great partners. So that's incredibly effective. And then also, just getting your face out there in conferences. I think we all go to conferences trying to understand, okay, what is everyone else in the industry doing? And we're always paying attention. Even if it's the client who's presenting, we're always paying attention to who their partner was on the supplier side.
You mentioned word of mouth. I call it more referral than anything else, but I think that's really key because it's gives us sort of that reference that someone either knows you worked and can vouch for what's being done, especially like I mentioned around something that maybe a new method. Conferences obviously are important because it has to be a process of discovery, so it's almost you have to kind of be everywhere and use webinars and things because out of those. While they are kind of an hour, a lot of times I've been to many and, kind of have to say some of them you just kind of, shut off after about the first 10 minutes because you realize it's just not as what you were looking for. But I think, again, more you're kind of out there, but not necessarily just directly, hey, here's what I have, is probably the best way. So it's kind of the way you can kind of get found at home.
What they said. I concur with everything they said in terms of channels. Definitely conferences, email. I think though what you're hearing and what I would just maybe reiterate in a different way is it's about the content really, right? So the channels is one thing, but really what you guys should focus on, and I think that was one of the points of the last presentation that was made, is looking to differentiate. And for me, and I think I heard a little bit of this in some of your responses, is it's about new insight, something new, interesting. That's what catches my eye, and it's got to be relevant. So you got to do your homework. That's the kind of stuff that really penetrates. So telling us about your new copy testing method or the latest, greatest tool is not going to do it for me. You got to show me why it's relevant to me, and even if you had some new, interesting insight that might precipitate my interest. I think it's really about the message more than anything, and being consistent in how you're delivering that.
I think the analogs are really important because we're within the vacuum. I'm within the vacuum of ESPN, and hearing what other companies are doing, not to reveal proprietary details, but just hearing like, oh, we faced similar challenges when we worked with HBO or MetLife, and for me, that's really valuable because you're sort of a gateway into what other corporate research companies are doing. So there's value in that in terms of marketing.
Okay. I know there are some great questions out there, so I'm going to open it up to questions. I'm going to grab the other mic, and if you could just wait to ask your question until I hand you the microphone. Test.
I was at a conference not too long ago and was at a cocktail table where no one could see that I was a vendor. And the clients that I was talking to, they were discussing how much they hated trade show floors because they felt like they were attacked. They wanted to know what companies did, but they didn't want to walk through the trade show floor. So what do you recommend vendors should do when they're at a conference?
I think you should meet with your clients that you know are going to go be there and realize that we're networking ourselves among our, so we're networking with HBO and other sort of colleagues. So they might say, oh, you know what, I'm meeting with a great so-and-so. So again, it's more personal. I'm not a fan of the trade show either. I'm shy, so it's just hard for me to walk through that. Introducing yourself, maybe after a presentation to someone, but I think that more personal touch is probably the most effective.
I was going to say hide your name tag, but it's funny though, because once I presented at a conference, and it was at the end, and it was catching a flight, and it was someone came up to me, and they just wouldn't let me go. It was just, no, but I really got to show you this, and I was like, so it is kind of tough in the end, just for that reason. I think a lot of it tends to be relevance, meaning again, the presenting. And saying, oh, you said this, and we can do that, or you mentioned it, or not even that it's a direct sell, it's just, oh, we know someone else, let's say. So that is, though, a danger, I'll have to admit, which is I can walk around sort of like this, which makes it kind of difficult. So, but again, with that chance, it's a balancing act, right? Because again, if you're just kind of sitting around and with your colleagues, you're never really going to find anything new. But on the other hand, then you risk being sort of attacked, I guess. So what is that balance? Finding how to do that.
I think we have another. Do you want to go?
No, that's okay.
Well, I thank you very much for your willingness to share these insights. My question is this: I often use LinkedIn to reach out to and to reconnect with my clients. Would just love to get your opinion as to whether or not that's a good approach or that really drives you crazy.
It's funny you mention that, because what I tend to look at if someone wants to connect is what their title is. If I see something generally business development or something, now I want to click off, because I've had cases, and which is why I don't generally check email for that reason, is it'll be less than a day that I've, let's say, have connected, that I'll get a note, oh, blah, 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 with, trying to connect. So, I have to admit I did it this morning with someone. So, that's the danger, but I think it's great, in terms of finding people who, if you have someone's been recommended, who else they've worked with, or who else they've connected with, that you may know, just sort of follow up. So I think from that it's great. But in terms of just the direct connection for someone you don't know, again, I just kind of am leery of, especially if I see that word in the title.
I think LinkedIn is a great tool for you to get to know who the client is before you email them. So definitely get to know them. There are people who reach out to us who have no idea what we do, and it would just have been, a 5-second check on LinkedIn. So for absolutely for checking, but I think for us, we're trying to manage those connections as well. So, if I've never worked with you, I've never even talked to you, probably reaching out first on LinkedIn is probably not the best way to introduce yourself, just because there are a lot of emails there as well. So I think for research purposes, it's absolutely the first thing that you should do, just to get to know what that client's actually doing. But agreed, it's not the best way to actually reach out and say, hello.
Just add on to that real quick. When I asked around the department about things about bug people, it's not going to LinkedIn and reaching out to me, my information's out there, that's great. But if we do talk for a second or have a quick contact, do not immediately follow up with a LinkedIn request. I don't know you. I'm not going to include you. So that's one way to quickly, lower yourself on my attention list. So eventually you'll get there.
More questions?
We're talking about meeting people at events. We're talking about social media. Well, we haven't talked about that one too much. LinkedIn. What about websites? What kind of role does that play? And what do you think of them?
I actually do use them. If I've gotten a referral from someone, I will go to your website. I find the most effective ones have case studies on them. So it's really putting into action what you guys did. I found a great partner that way, really small business. She taught. I think she's one other person at her company, but she has these great case studies on her website. So for me, it's a great way to do research before you guys actually come in for a capabilities presentation. So that's just me, but kind of before I bring you in the office, I'll check out the website and say, oh, look, that's interesting.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think I do the same. And those case studies, I think, is a great approach. And we didn't talk about video yet, but I think that's a very effective way for you guys to communicate. So like many, just in general, I think it's much easier to click on a video and watch that for a couple of minutes and read, several paragraphs or whatever. So I would definitely employ video in some of your communications, and then even when you're presenting those case studies.
I think it depends on how effective the website is, because I think a lot, just for that reason, you can go to, if you found out about something, you go and then you can spend time there and say, what exactly do they do? Because it's just not effective. I mean, I think they are, and especially of, let's say, who the principals are, and then again, what you may or may not do. But to me, they're still effective in that sense.
I mean, as a website design guy, it's one of those things where it all depends. But I mean, I use websites to get some additional information. But I just really have to say is I prefer dealing with people rather than companies, and websites tend to talk about the company. So what I need the people. I need to hear from somebody. I need to meet somebody. I need to talk to them. And also what I need to talk to is I need to talk to the research people. Salespeople are great for potentially making the first contact, but when the conversation gets to, I'll have to check on that, I'll have to check on that, I'll have to check on that, it slows the process down. And also very junior people should not be your front person. I had somebody give me some feedback before this that somebody was reaching out to them from a company we've heard from before, and their information that you could look up on them was their personal Facebook page. They were just out of college, there were a lot of fraternity pictures, so it's really not a great way to sell yourself. So just sort of think about that kind of thing, is what face you want to put forward for that engagement. So.
Thank you. You talked about relevant issues, things that are really relevant. I'd be curious, what are the really business or marketing or data issues that currently are really relevant, top of mind, maybe keeping you up at night?
I always nothing keeps me up at night. I see it very well. So, but I just think in general, we've talked about the effective technology on things is so much with my day, and what's what I love about it, what I do is every day there's something new for me to be looking at. But from your standpoint is understanding and following that too, and how that might affect my company. So, I mean, for example, when people talk, I've got people coming in pitching me about stuff about ad testing and things like that. HBO is not an ad-supported network. So that, right off the bat, is a little trouble. Don't tell me you love Dexter as the first thing. So sort of knowing my business, but as a great example I wanted to mention, I do a lot of usability work, and I've had one firm that's done a lot of my stuff for HBO Go over the years. I had another company that had formed, somebody I'd worked with in the past had his own company. I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to you. So I told him we're thinking about doing something, here's the topic. What I got back was a presentation, not a proposal. And he said, basically, this is how your report would look, but it's my proposal. And by the way, we went out and talked to a couple people, and here's what we found, and we think it was really interesting, and here's how we would pursue getting more information. So he got the job. So, and he did an excellent job on it. So it was, he asked for what I was interested in, similar to, like you're saying, what I have on my mind. And he went out and answered it a little bit and told me how he would answer it even better if we were to do a project with him. So.
I'd just add to that, because I had a similar experience, and it really won me over, where we found a company that we were interested in. And that's another point just to make, that we proactively are looking for new companies all the time, because we feel like to stay on the cutting edge of the market research field, we need to be out there and seeing what new companies are doing, what new techniques are being developed. So take hard too. It's not that we're settled on a few suppliers and we're not looking for new blood. We are. And the way this one company got our attention was we were interested enough based on what we had read and seen about them, and we met them at a conference. So again, it wasn't so much actually walking through the floor as it was attending a presentation that was actually done by another company, but their supplier was there. So that afterwards I thought, hey, that was really interesting. I'd like to find out more about that company. So if you can get places on the agenda where you can present in a workshop or something, or even help your clients get into those situations, just by them appearing, you're actually getting a big hit there. Basically, we just gave a simple business problem to this company to test them out, get a proposal, and they went out proactively on their own, did interviews, videotaped them with our target audience, and shared that back with us. And it really wowed us because they did their homework. They actually, researched the business issue, did the interviews, and really came back with something thoughtful. And that's what differentiated them. So it's not hard, I don't think. Like, someone mentioned before, go on our websites. You can, these are big companies, right? So there's lots of news on us. You can go to our websites and look at PR releases even. And that's the kind of homework that needs to be done, not the macro. We all deal with the same basic trends that are impacting businesses today and grappling with the same big issues, generally speaking, but it's more about getting into that industry now and understanding that particular product category and what they're challenged with in growing their business.
It may seem a little shallow, but if you don't know sports, we're not going to hire you. It's true. If you don't know, we grill people, you need to know our business because we can't start with the 101. We just don't have the time. We realize you have the research background, most people do. You have to know our business. You have to watch our network. You have to go on our site. It just will give you an edge. And we almost, if you can't name our website, if you can't name some of our programs, then we're on to the next.
Since you mentioned that, and since you mentioned staying awake, keeping you awake at night, I would say whether the Mets are going to finish with a winning record this year finally after 6 years. But aside that, let's hope. But I think from a stay awake at night kind of thing. It was mentioned before about sort of media effectiveness, and now with more money allocated to video and display and things, kind of I think answering that question, and then. Really, with social media, I've done a lot of work in terms of just listening, but using it in a predictive way is another one that's sort of a big challenge for me, and not have really found anything that has kind of lent itself to that. So between both of those, but it always changes, and it doesn't even have to be in something that is specific to that. It's kind of could be just new methods and things that would make you sort of stand up and take notice.
I think we have another question.
Thank you. I just was wondering if you guys have a philosophy in terms of allocation of work, existing suppliers or vendors versus selection of new suppliers during a course of a year or a period of time?
Do you mean how much you're done by existing versus new?
Yeah, do you guys have a philosophy? Do you guys have a philosophy in terms of, okay, this year I know the market's changing, I need to get some new blood in or new kind of intelligence into the system. My goal is to get 3 new vendors, or I need to make sure I work with a big data company. Do you guys have those concrete goals, or is it really more opportunistic in terms of who arrives at my door?
Probably, I wouldn't say not. I think for me at least, you start the year to say we want to work with 2 new vendors this year, because I think you always balance with trust you may have in existing that they can get something done versus trusting someone new. But on the other hand, trying to find new things that you may want to do, but you don't really kind of. And I at least personally never looked at it that way of sort of kind of great work is going to be great work, no matter where it comes from.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think somebody who specifically has that allocation probably wouldn't be coming out and talking to suppliers like this. They have a very specific approach, but for us, innovation will come from an old vendor. That's the kind of vendor that will keep working for years and years and years. So, if they, come up with something new, we're happy to work with one vendor, for all our projects. But the problem is not everybody has that capability. So I think we will go out if a vendor that we work with already doesn't have the capability. But I think as you think about new products and innovations, that's something that your current partners probably want to hear about too. So I've never heard, I think, of anybody who has a strict allocation.
We don't have a strict allocation, but I will say we do push ourselves to work with new partners. I think internally we get into a rut where we're kind of saying the same things and thinking about things the same way, and when we're consistently working with the same partners, they get in a rut. It's just hard. They're used to working with us, they know our business, so right now we're kind of rethinking our brand promise, and we don't want to work with the same partner we've been working with because we just need some fresh thinking, and they're absolutely fantastic. It's just everyone gets into a rut, and that's why it's critical that we work with new people.
But you shouldn't get in a rut. Please don't get in a rut. It's a lot of work for us to set up a new vendor. It's a lot of work for us to vet a new vendor. So if you're actually, especially, it's not peanuts that we're paying, right? So at the end of the day, with these big multi-year studies that you're doing, don't get in a rut. Think about something new. What is new about this wave? Even if you're doing, the tracking, what's new about this tracking that's going to help us kind of sell the budget that we're allocating to it? So just don't get in a rut.
Just on that too, I mean, just don't. If you don't have something sexy to necessarily offer, but you're really great at something, that's very valuable as well. And I have a company I met a bunch of years back who just great field and tab house, but didn't plan on talking to me because we're HBO, we've got to be doing cooler things than that. I have those needs too. I mean, a lot of times we have people internally that will do their own reporting and analysis and stuff. I have some flexibility, and this company now has been doing a consistent study for me for 3 years now on a quarterly basis, but it changes as it goes. So they're just solid. They deliver exactly what they need on a great budget, and they're very flexible. So don't assume that we may not need some basic stuff too. Everybody's coming in with the new stuff, but some of the standards, they're still very helpful. So.
More questions?
Hi. What trade media do you read or look at regularly? Do you have any favorites?
Works.
CTAM, I mean, it's more of a cable media, but we definitely look at CTAM. And ARF is big within our company.
Okay, more questions?
It's more of a challenge. If I come to you, I keep hearing about referrals and videos and stories and ways to engage you. If I tell you stories about people that I do business with who you compete with on a daily basis, is that more helpful, or is that shooting myself in the foot where you're going to say, well, do I want to jump on the bandwagon with, in your case, Neil, New York Life, AXA, all these people?
I mean, I don't think we want like details. It's even helpful. I work in a media company to hear what you're doing on the consumer package side. It's not really about head-to-head about what my direct competitor is doing. It's just about broadening my horizon in terms of what how other corporate research departments are tackling issues.
You talk about the name dropping phenomenon, I guess, or the, when you're presenting with, here's our client list, which always tends to come up as slide 2 or 3, right? I mean, it depends on certain people. I mean, to me, that doesn't always kind of work, but I agree. it doesn't have to be within the same industry to be, you know, thought of as innovative. A lot of times I think it should be outside because you may see other industries that tackle things a different way. But I mean, I think there are certain people that host currency with, but yeah, I see that kind of dropped all the time.
I think it's very transparent though when you are just saying don't get left behind, that message. That doesn't really scare most clients, side researchers, I think. So it's almost a threat, right? It's a veiled threat, and so we can see through that, so don't do that. And definitely, you know, offer up some industry insights if you have industry insights and expertise in that industry. We're always open to that. But I think the message of, you know, do this because everybody else is doing it probably won't work.
Also, depending on the industry, like I know for us, if you're doing work with Stars or Showtime, for example, if you're a smaller company, it's really not going to work. If you're a larger company and you can put different teams on it, we're open to considering that, but that's also something to keep in mind. And you know, it may also be that you prefer our business over theirs, which then is a different pitch. But it's just one of those things to also know that is a challenge. It's one of those things we just are not going to work with somebody who's doing work for a direct competitor. So.
Have you seen any suppliers, or can suppliers make deliverables a key differentiator, and have you seen anything innovative in that area?
I mean, just for our end, and it's something we're looking at internally too, but I mean, the days of the 150-page deck are gone. I mean, I need something that I can cover pretty quickly, and that and essentially a couple slides can sort of contribute the main piece, but less dense, more pop, something that will just keep people's attention as you're presenting it. I have a very mixed, sometimes I bring our partners in to present with us, sometimes I present it myself, so what's being presented sort of needs to have that kind of flexibility. I'm also very big on getting data with everything now, if it's been a quant study, so we can look at it on our own. Again, it's one of those things, is I have people in-house, I come from a data background, but I think just sort of being able to cover all avenues, but the ultimate end product really needs to tell the story rather than just be the data dump. I can get the data behind everything and pop everything later, but I think just more storytelling. And again, it's not from HBO's standpoint. If I used to be at AT&T and all that stuff, I would want the same kind of thing. It's just much easier. People just have much less time, much less attention span, and like again, it's the old elevator thing. I run into, you know, the president in the elevator, and he asks, "How's this going?" I don't have a lot of time, so.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question.
Well, this question may be ridiculous, so I can end this piece on a ridiculous question. Maybe I don't know if it's going to make sense. So I want to come back to the topic of relevance, because I think that seems critical, right? And I love you're saying we want you to come with relevant information. And I think we do too. We want to come with the most relevant information for you, for your business. And so at this very early stage where we haven't yet talked to you, trying to figure out what that is, you're suggesting it's kind of like this, it's a weird, like, sort of courting relationship. We haven't talked to you yet, and you're saying, well, go do your homework, which is basically sort of like a euphemism for spying. Like, go to the website, go figure and take your best guess at what you think is relevant to me. And I guess my question to you is there any other way besides taking our best guess in that early stage of the relationship, as in we haven't even talked to you yet, but trying to, that we could get a richer sense of what is going to be relevant to you? Because we can study your business and we know what will be appropriate to your business as far as guesses, but we still won't know what's the burning topic of this year.
Well, I don't think it's spying. We're all public companies. I mean, we're pretty open about what our challenges are if you read any trade publication. So I don't consider it spying if you send me a note and say, oh, the college football playoff just launched, you know, wondering what how you guys are tackling it. I know it's the first year, and it's all public information.
Just to add to that, maybe 20 years ago, that would have been the case. It's hard to find information about the person that you're reaching out to. But we all, publish white papers. We all have presentations. We all present at conferences. I think for the people that you're reaching out to, they're out there. You know the kinds of topics that they're talking about. You know the kinds of studies that they're fielding. So, a simple search, Bing search, of course, will be very effective at that. It has pictures too, so you can even see my picture on Bing right away. But, it isn't that it's not out there, and it's not spying if it's research, right? We're researchers. We want you to research us because we want you to be smart about what you offer us. So I don't think that it's that hard to actually figure out what we do. If you just look up our names, you know the kinds of things that we talk about and that we're interested in. So I don't think that it's that hard to make that first email personal anymore.
Yeah, and I would just say personal is one thing, but over personal, I got somebody forwarded me information that they got about, oh, what a crisp fall we're having. I love this time of year, and I was like, there's a point where you keep it sort of professional.
Okay, thank you to our panel of clients. We really